In a world that is just so noisy, where everyone is trying to talk, to post, to get their voice heard, there's one skill that's kind of become this overlooked superpower. And that skill, it's listening. We're going to break down why getting really good at this can absolutely change the game for you, both at work and in your personal life. So get this. Research shows that the average adult spends about 45% of all their communication time just listening. That's a huge number. I mean, that's more time than we spend talking or reading or writing. It is literally the number one thing we do to communicate every single day. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets crazy. Even with all that practice, we forget about half of what we hear almost right away. Poof, just gone. 50% of it just evaporates from our memory. And that leads us to a really interesting problem. Yeah, we're calling this the listening paradox. Think about it. We spend nearly half our lives doing this thing, and yet we're kind of terrible at it. So that begs the question, right? If we're doing it all the time, why aren't we better at it? And, more importantly, what can we do to actually fix it? That's what we're about to figure out.
Okay, so if you want to become a better listener, first you got to understand what's actually going on upstairs. See, listening isn't just this passive thing where sound just enters your ears. Nope, it's a learned process, almost like a 5-stage machine that's always running in your brain. Let's take a peek at how this machine works. So here they are, the 5 stages: receiving, interpreting, recalling, evaluating, and responding. Now, what's really important to get is that this isn't some simple step-by-step checklist. It's way more dynamic than that. All these stages are constantly overlapping. For instance, you might be nodding your head, that's responding, while you're still receiving and interpreting what the person is saying. Everything kicks off with stage 1, receiving. And you have to remember, listening isn't just for your ears, it's for your eyes too. We're obviously taking in the words we hear, the auditory stuff, but we're also scanning for all those visual cues. Facial expressions, body language, all that stuff adds these crucial layers of meaning to the message. Now let's talk about one of the biggest hurdles in this whole process, which happens right at the recalling stage. This right here is called the forgetting curve, and it is fascinating. Look at this. Right after a conversation, we've already lost half the information. 50%. In a work meeting, that's half your client's instructions or your team's feedback, just gone. And it gets worse. After just one day, you're down to retaining maybe 20%. It just goes to show you how leaky our memory really is and why being an active listener is so critical. So why are we so bad at this? Well, a lot of the time, our listening process gets completely sabotaged. Let's meet a few of the usual suspects, what we'll call the villains of conversation. And I'm pretty sure we're all going to recognize some of these. First up, we've got the topic hijacker. This is your classic narcissistic listener. They aren't listening to understand you at all. They are just patiently waiting for a gap in the conversation so they can jump in and make it all about them. Their signature move is the pivot, seamlessly shifting the spotlight right back onto their own stories. I mean, here's a perfect example. Bryce is trying to open up about something that's really bothering him, but Toby, our topic hijacker, just steamrolls right over him. He dismisses Bryce's problem and one-ups him with his own complaint. Just like that, the conversation's all about Toby. Sound familiar to anyone?
All right, next up, the ambusher. This is the aggressive listener. Oh, they listen, all right. They listen very, very carefully, but only to collect ammunition. They're not trying to understand where you're coming from. They're just looking for that one little opening to attack, to criticize, or to start a debate.
So in this little exchange, Deb is just sharing a nice, simple idea. But Summer isn't hearing the idea at all. She's using it as a trigger, an excuse to unleash all this pent-up frustration from the past. See, this isn't a conversation anymore. It's an ambush. It turns what could have been a fun moment into a total conflict.
And finally, for today, let's talk about the faker. You might also know this one as the pseudo-listener. This villain is an absolute master of disguise. They look like they're listening. They're nodding, they're smiling, they're throwing in an aha here and there. But really, their mind is a million miles away.
Let's be honest, we've probably all done this at some point, maybe just to be polite. But when pseudo-listening becomes a habit, we are running a huge risk of getting found out. And trust me, when someone realizes you haven't actually heard a single word they've said, that can do some serious damage to the trust in that relationship. So, how do we fight back against these villains? How do we finally unlock that superpower we've been talking about? Well, the answer is something called active listening. And this is not just about staying quiet and letting someone else talk. It is a conscious, engaged skill set that can completely transform how you communicate.
So, what is active listening really? Well, it's all about combining what's happening on the outside with what's happening on the inside. It's about showing that you're listening with your body language and your expressions, while at the same time, you're actually using your brain to focus, to process, and to truly understand the message.
So, what does this actually look like? Let's open up the toolkit. First, try paraphrasing. Just saying something like, okay, so what I'm hearing is, shows the other person you're really trying to get it. Second, ask questions to clarify. Simple things like, when you say X, what do you mean by that? Third, use those little back channel cues. A simple nod, an aha, a wow. It shows you're right there with them. And finally, here's the gold standard. Reference something they said earlier in the conversation. That is undeniable proof that you've been locked in the whole time. But active listening isn't just about what you do on the outside. It's also a mental game. Remember how our brains think way faster than people can talk? Well, instead of letting that extra bandwidth lead to daydreaming, we can use it productively. Try something called mental bracketing, just intentionally setting aside distracting thoughts. Use that quiet time to mentally rephrase what they're saying, or ask yourself silent questions about the content. It keeps you engaged. And here's a super simple but incredibly powerful tool we tend to forget about. Just take some notes. Seriously, even in a casual conversation, jotting down a few key points forces you to concentrate, and it helps you organize the information in your own way, which makes it way easier to remember later. Don't be shy about it. Just ask, hey, do you mind if I jot this down? It actually shows you care.
So, we started this whole thing with a wild statistic. You spend nearly half of your life listening. The real question, now that you have some of these tools, is are you going to make it count? Because mastering this skill, it isn't just about hearing words. It's about really, truly understanding people.